All right. Welcome, everyone, to the initial 2026 podcast for Gentian, where we show you the happenings of what's going on now, what you should pay attention to. And specifically, right now, we're going to talk about planning for the new year. If any of you have noticed, it's 2026. Yeah, no, really, it is. It is. Have you written a check and written 2025 on it yet? Oh, wait a minute. A check is one of those things that we used to use. It's a piece of paper that you can write notes on. Anyway, I'm getting down a rabbit hole. But welcome to 2026. And really, for myself, there's a couple things. 2026 marks the 250th year of the American experiment. We didn't create it, but we have inherited it. What happens with it on a go-forward basis is up to us. The country will show up as we are. So I look to 2026 to be the best we possibly can, to show this the example of how we might operate in humility, operate together, and realize that our differences are sometimes our strengths. That's how I want to enter this 250th bicentennial year for our United States. For our team, I want to go forward and begin just in gratitude. I'm grateful for what people have done to found this country that we live in. The great things that are there, the tough things that are there, are all part of its chemistry. You are part of it. We appreciate that tremendously. What we want to do and what I'm grateful for on a go forward basis is our opportunity to make a difference in some positive way. So, outlining this planning for the new year, I just wanted to start with a gratitude that way. And rather than going to gratitude for everyone as we normally do, what I'd like to do is just begin a quick moment with a reflection, maybe ask you a question. Is there anything, if you go back over the last 250 years of your life, that you look at that's been monumental? Okay, it could just be last year, but I just thought that'd be a good one to take a look at. If so, what do you in 2026 want to bring into this year from the last 20, 30, 40, 60 years? What do you want to leave behind? The nice thing about planning for a new year, it's a new beginning, and you are the author. You get to choose what happens. You're the only one who gets to interpret what happens this year. So maybe this year, rather than being bitter when something happens you don't agree with, you're a little bit better because of it. Just about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes ago, we came up with a new one. Should we have some ha-ha moments versus aha moments? What are those? I don't know yet. We've just made it up, but we'll tell you as it comes along. There's some great things that are going to happen in 2026. Prepare now for you, how you approach them, what you're going to do to celebrate them, but also prepare for what happens in 2026 since it is unknown. Could be things that occur that you don't expect. Could be a health issue. Could be an issue with work. Could be an issue with markets. Could be an issue with almost anything. But one thing I want to tell you is we're here to help you prepare for that, to help you walk through those incredible moments you have in your life with calm clarity. We're here. We're on your side. You don't have to worry about going it alone. Want to make sure that you understand that that's why we're here. We understand that. We want to make sure you understand that. So really approaching 2026 with a heart of being a helper for you, providing calm in any storms that occur is what we want to do here at Gentian for you and your family. So with that, as we go forward, I want to approach today with some of our teammates and some great ideas that they have. Why don't I do the first one? Zach, why don't you give us a 2026 outlook on things that you think are going to happen and really in concrete, we can count on they're going to happen for sure. Oh, wait,
Yeah,
never mind. You go.
exactly. Happy to do so. And before I do, just wanted to, when you said the 250 year and really appreciate the country that we live in, I remember a Memorial Day service that I watched with my parents probably 6 or 7 years ago that said, let us not focus on what temporarily divides us, but what permanently unites us. That came back to me when you said that. And also a quick gratitude to you, Chris, for celebrating your birthday tomorrow. So everyone who's on here, wish Chris a very happy birthday. But
Thank you.
heading
I
into
appreciate
2026 here, we've only had 3 trading days, so not going to go into major detail of how those various indices are doing, but a few highlights to take a look at is that the Russell 2000, those smaller size companies, actually 4% positive in just 3 days. And the merging markets is 4% positive in 3 days as well. So those are extremely interesting ones that we're looking at. And just to give kind of a look forward to 2026, wanted to kind of look back to look forward, if that makes any sense at all. So every quarter we receive a JP Morgan guide to the markets, and it's about 100 pages of all the market charts and facts that you could ever dream of. And I would love to share them all, but I'm just going to share about 4 of them. So, the first one of just the importance of diversification and also to be aware and careful of comparison. So, looking at the S&P 500, the biggest 500 companies in the world by their market size and capitalization, currently the top 10 companies account for 40% of the S&P 500. So both of which are or that's the highest ever. And what was extremely interesting is that the top 10 account for 33% of the earnings of the entire S&P 500. So 10 companies account for a third of the earnings, which is extremely interesting to look at. So with our timeless piece of diversification, probably more important than ever to stay diversified and not chase around returns with that. Also, what I thought was really interesting looking at it, only two of those top 10 companies were in the top 10 in 2015. So eight of which are new just in the last 10 years. So only Apple and Microsoft were part of those top 10 during that time, and it was including Johnson & Johnson, Procter and Gamble at that time. By no means are these buy recommendations for these, but just extremely interesting to look at that just in the last 10 years, a dramatic shift in what the top 10 companies are. Uh, Two other ones that I'll just take a look at that just putting things in the long-term focus. It's like Mike and I were talking about this the other day. We have like an immediate end of the year ends, and all of a sudden it's like the clock starts at zero for the markets, right? And we kind of forget the historical perspective of it. And despite intra-year drops of over 14% per year on average, so every single year since 1980, the market has temporarily gone down on average by 14%, yet has ended positive for the year 35 of the last 46. So only 11 of the last 46 years have actually ended negative despite an intra-year drop of 14% on average, with an annual return of almost 11%, 10.7% on average. And then the last thing that I'll leave you with that was just extremely interesting as we were diving through all these charts and just things to add to our perspective is consumer sentiment is something that's very interesting to look at over time. It was at an all-time low over the last 50 years in June of 2022. So flashback to 2022, runaway inflation, highest interest rate increase ever, and markets ended at their fourth worst calendar returning year since 1974, but then set the stage for extreme growth for the last 3 years after that. So what was really interesting is I thought that the consumer sentiment right now after these last 3 years was actually going to be pretty high, right? That we were going to go through, okay, we were at a period of, not being very confident, and now we'd be in exuberance. Actually, not the case. We're still at the sixth lowest consumer sentiment since 1971. So just extremely interesting to look at and just puts us back to our timeless pieces of rebalancing, asset allocation, diversification, and always focusing on the long-term plan instead of where markets are currently at or what the current events are telling us. So very long-winded there, a lot of facts, but I'll pass it back to you, Chris.
Awesome. That's awesome, Zach. So earlier I asked Zach, because he's really good with presentations. So I did ask Zach, how good are you with PowerPoint? He said, oh, I excel at it. For if you get that, if you're a Microsoft person, you understand what that is. It's pretty funny. But Zach, I got to ask you a couple of questions. So we have some questions that have come from the audience. Exactly where will the S&P be at the end of the year?
Great question. I'm guessing there's going to be an intra-year drop of some kind, and then the analysts are going to reset to be under what it'll end up as.
There you
So
go. I love that. I think it's funny. They're going to adapt to whatever happens, right? We've seen this happen time and time again. The beautiful thing is it doesn't matter. Your plan is set. I know that's what we've done before, but I appreciate that, Zach. Thank you for the great facts. I mean, we're smart enough to understand. We don't talk a lot about current events here, especially even in these moments, because on a day-to-day basis, I can talk about four wars. We can talk about, the stuff going on in Venezuela. You can talk about politics, or you can talk about, anything you'd like to, a big shutdown. I mean, all the stuff that happened, is happening through Gaza, the tensions that are happening in Taiwan. We can go through all of these gold prices, the tightening of this, the price of that. People don't talk about good things like the price of gas has gone down. There's some affordability in certain places where housing has dropped. Interest rates have dropped for those who are lending, but then people who are saving are talking about this. If you're looking around for positive things, you have to look for them. I do notice also as we get older, more things happen to the older people we know. And I think you'll start to see illnesses, you start to see sicknesses, people passing away. And as you get older, you do get happier, but you're also starting to realize and appreciate things more. So I do focus on what can you appreciate more in 2026 as well. Little moments, appreciate the just the presence with someone else, their friendship. You're spending time with family, somebody who may not be here for a long time, who's quite old. These are important things to do in 2026. So let's cherish those. Thank you, Zach. Let me move forward here. What I want to take a look at is we've got Ryan, and he's got a setting a standard versus setting a goal. So Ryan's got an interesting view of this. And this is Ryan Carroll. He's our internal director of trading and all operations, if you will. He does all the things. He knows more about all your portfolios than you know he knows. But he's the one who makes it all happen behind the scenes. So Ryan, please enlighten us today.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, what an introduction. And I kind of speak on this topic a little bit more from my history than my current role. You know, as a personal trainer, strength and conditioning coach, I worked a lot with people setting goals and reaching goals, mostly with health and fitness. But I find that the principles really apply to any goal that you want to set. And to first, I think the place to start is that we need to define what is a goal versus what is a standard. So a goal generally being somewhere out in the distant future, maybe a month, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 5 years. You have a target that you want to hit. It's not entirely in your control whether or not you hit this target. You can do many things correctly. You can maybe do everything correctly and still not reach a very audacious goal, which can be greatly motivating. Personally, I love nearly impossible goals, and they really help keep me motivated. But something that's more in our control is when we set a standard that will move us towards those goals. So when I think of a standard, I think of a minimum that I am going to allow myself to move towards that goal on a daily basis. So as an example, maybe you want to run a marathon this year. What can I do as a minimum every single day to help me move a little bit closer to that goal? Something that I know on any given day, pretty much no matter what's going on, I can do. Maybe that's just going out for a walk or a run 10 minutes every day. Maybe it's less than that when you start out. Maybe it's 5 minutes. But set yourself a standard, a minimum that you're willing to do on a daily basis. Another great example I use with people, I want to be stronger. I want to have more upper body strength. Okay, well, I can't really do very many push-ups right now. Can you do one push-up? Get down and do one single push-up every single day. Now, that's where the magic really starts to happen with a standard is once you're down there and you do that one push-up, you're probably going to do more than that. You know, some days you might just do the one, but more often than not, you get down there, you do that one push-up. Oh, well, I could do one more. I could do one more. I could do one more. And pretty soon you're getting and you're really building that volume. You're really building that consistency over time that really pushes you towards those big goals. And I think the best thing that you can possibly do, which I've kind of already done here in these examples, is pair a big goal with a standard. You know, Zach and I, we talk a lot about our endeavors in long distance running and endurance events. And it can be really, really daunting to look at those distances and train for those kinds of distances. But when we look back at our training, we have had the most success when we set a minimum standard of I am going to do this every single day. And it's something that I know no matter how busy my day gets, I can squeeze in the 10 minutes, the 15 minutes that it takes to do that minimum. And I do want to give one example that's not health and fitness. I know I lean on that a lot, but I also think about, education or just reading for enjoyment. Some people will set a goal like, I want to read 50 books this year, or I want to read 10 books this year. You're not entirely in control of that, but what you are in control of is doing a minimum amount of reading every single day. And that might be one page. I'm going to read one page every single day. I'm going to read for 10 minutes every single day. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to reach that big goal of 50 books, 100 books, but it is going to get you to do more reading on a daily basis, and it's going to push you towards that goal. You might not even pair that with a goal. It might just be, I enjoy reading and I want to make sure that I include it in my daily routine because it makes me happy. I'm in a better mood when I read. Okay, I'm going to set a minimum standard that this is something I'm going to do for 10 minutes every day because I know it's going to make my day better. So I really encourage you guys, use the standard setting, use the goal setting, but they can really, really be powerful when you put them together.
That's awesome, Ryan. I totally appreciate that. That's a great way to look at it too. And I think raising your standards is important. I think one thing we talked about before, and maybe it was you and I or a few others, we talked about lowering our expectations of others and things we can't control because you can't control others, but raising our standards for ourselves. That's one of the equations for a great life. And I know that we've discussed it, but thank you for that reiteration, the way you've put it. That was really, that was well framed. I appreciate that. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. So, one thing we look at our standard here is if something doesn't increase our calm, our confidence, our clarity, we question it, right? We don't criticize it. Notice the difference there. We question it. One of the things you hire us to do is to reduce the anxiety, to increase your confidence and give you clarity when you walk out of here. So that's the goal of our podcast as well, is to do the same. So thank you. That was very helpful. Next on our agenda, I want to have some planning items for actually, before I go to that, we've got a unique scenario that Ben had shared with us. And I think it's something you guys might be able to take example from, but something that he and his wife did this weekend that we wanted to share with everyone. Ben, why don't you let us know? Give us an idea and tell us what that was. It was very unique and please share it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. And yeah, I think this is a perfect transition coming off of Ryan's standards and goals, because that's essentially what we did, me and my wife, this weekend. We were very intentional about this, and I got to give credit where credit's due. This was my wife's idea, where she is like, you know what, we've had these goals, dreams, aspirations over the last 6 years of our marriage, and some have happened, some haven't, but why is that? Well, we haven't been intentional. So she's like, let's be intentional. So we set aside an entire day where we were going to be intentional with all our goals, whether that be financial, faith-based, personal, individual, for our family, everything in between. We set aside, you know what, let's take one day to be super intentional. So we started it out where we picked our favorite breakfast place, where we went to breakfast at 8 a.m. and just chit-chatted, had a connection time. Then we followed it up where we went to our favorite coffee shop and we talked about our fitness goals. And so we had an agenda for that. And then once that was wrapped up, we said, okay, let's move on. We're going to go back to our clubhouse at our apartment complex and we'll talk all of our financial goals. We're a little bit more private, but we're still not at home where we can get distracted. And then we took a little break, like, hey, that was a lot to digest. Let's both individually get something that we want to get done. I went and worked out. She went and read for a little bit. We came back after our thoughts were collected, and then we finished it up with other faith-based goals, our travel goals, individual goals, all of this, very intentional. And then on the final piece, we picked a restaurant that meant a lot to us. So we went to the restaurant where we went when we first got engaged to celebrate that, to kick off, hey, what a great day of planning together, and what a great 2026 it hopefully will be with our more intentional goal setting and standards that we're going to be raising here. So it was a very, very powerful, unique experience where we felt super, super connected. We had three rules to the day. Our phones had to be on do not disturb. We had to come prepared, and we had to be intentional with our time. And I think we accomplished all those things. And for our marriage is better for it. But I think now this unique day can apply to you, your spouses, your significant others. I would challenge you guys, it doesn't have to be a full day, but take a little time, make an agenda, pick a couple spots where you guys feel intentional, where you're not going to get distracted with, oh, I got to get the laundry done. Oh, I should really clean that. Or, oh, so and so's calling. No, get away, be together, and plan out your 2026 so you can be intentional and raise your standards for some goals. Because I know a lot of you have very big goals, and we're here to help you guys with them. So, with that, back to you, Chris.
That's awesome, Ben. I appreciate that. Question for you real quick. So
Yeah,
when it comes to that, setting the goals are awesome. Do you guys have any accountability plans to
that
follow up with those? Have you guys put anything like how to measure it or what will you do at the end of the year? What's your thought on that?
that's a great question. So that's exactly what we did. My wife said it best. She's like, we've had systems, but they've all been flawed over the years. So let's change some of our systems. So every Sunday, we're going to take 30 minutes to kind of check in. Hey, high level, did we check the boxes for our financial things, our faith things, our fitness things, and then have a dinner together.
Awesome.
That's a weekly thing. And then quarterly, we're going to have a big dinner that's celebrated to, hey, let's look at all the goals and really dive in. What have we been doing? And maybe, hey, what do we really need to double down on? And we actually picked a theme for it. So to give peek behind the curtain, our favorite restaurant where we got engaged was Mr. B's in Mequon here. And so we picked the theme of the quarter is going to be trying a new Bartolotta restaurant every quarter. And so it's a very intentional, exciting thing where we'll plan beforehand and then go celebrate, hey, what's worked, what hasn't worked, but let's make sure we double down and hold ourselves accountable that we can make these standards stick and not just a pipe dream like they had been.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Hey, Ben, I just had one more question. Can Deb and I come along to your accountability?
We would love more the merrier, Chris. More the merrier. That's what I say.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, that's outstanding. No, really, really good as well. I appreciate that. That helps us with the structure. It helps us all look towards how can we not just set, but also keep ourselves accountable through the year and have some enjoyment with the person who's special to us in our lives too. So thank you. Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate that one too. I did ask Ben because there was snow on the ground when he said this. And so what did the snow woman say to the snowman that he was trying to woo? He said, "I only have ice for you." That's how Ben asked her to marry her. No, I'm just kidding. It's good for you guys. I appreciate that, Ben. It was more serious than that, but I appreciate it. Planning is what we do. So it's also nice to hear different ways people put these together, not just the planning we do, but the planning for your life. Because ultimately, we understand the money here is often there to support what it is you do with the rest of your life, the things that are much more important than the dollars. Because if I was to tell you what's more important than money, we've just talked about some of that as well. So we recognize that. Thank you. What I want to do on our next segment here as well is going to bring Michael on here. Michael's got some planning for us, and he's got some detailed probably 20, 30, 40 minutes of planning that he's going to talk to us about here for the items for the new year, right, Michael? Is that right? You got just lay it all out for us.
Yeah, probably closer to the 40-minute side of things, but
Okay, good.
I'll try to keep it as concise as possible.
I
But
appreciate that.
handful of new items on the planning side of the equation for 2026. Some of the stuff from OBBA, the 2025 tax law changes, we've touched on a few of the previous podcasts. So in the interest of redundancy, I'll skip over those for today. So for Social Security, the cost of living adjustment or the raise to for each person's benefits is 2.8%. They were adjusted up for 2026. So that started back in January. If you're collecting, you should have already seen that. But on the flip side, Medicare Part B, the base rate was in 2025 $185 a month. That's now $202.90 per month. That's going to cover the outpatient care, doctor visits, a handful of other things. Also new for 2026, retirement account contribution limits have also increased. So for IRAs or individual retirement accounts, you can contribute $500 more than last year. And then for the catch-up contributions for those who are age 50 and older, last year, you were able to put an extra $1,000 into an IRA account. This year, it's $1,100. On the retirement account contribution limits for your employer plans, those limits were raised up $1,000 for 2026. So just some small adjustments there. Last thing I want to touch on, one that's more, I think, powerful as we look at the planning side of the equation. There's been an update for 2026 where the IRS is now allowing penalty-free IRA withdrawals to pay long-term care insurance premiums. Again, I'll emphasize penalty-free, not tax-free. So for those distributions, you're able to take $2,500 per year, even if you're under age 59 and a half, when typically that penalty comes into play. The IRS defines these as quality long-term care policies. So we're recommending to check with your provider of that policy to make sure that it is considered a quality long-term care policy. If there's something you're considering doing, please talk to us. But I think this just goes to show there's a bigger theme in the financial planning world, especially as we move through some of these different changes that we're seeing. All the planning that we do is becoming more interconnected, from Social Security, Medicare, taxes, income planning, healthcare planning. They don't live in these separate buckets anymore. It's all interconnected and it's very complex. So if any of these, you have questions on any of these apply to you or you want to discuss more, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to chat with you. Back to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you very much. There's a lot of planning that goes on with what we do. A lot of the numbers we've talked about here are also super important. we take the planning and the numbers very seriously. We've done it for 30 plus years. So thank you very much, Michael, for bringing some of those up. There's a lot of facts as well. There's going to be some tax law changes. There's going to be some things that occur this year that are known, unknown, and there'll be some clarity brought around the little kids accounts for people who were born last year. Still can't be opened, but we're still looking at some of the details with that. Remember, our government likes to, and the IRS like to create laws, but not give you the details and somehow define them somewhere down the road at some point. So we'll keep you abreast of those. We stay very close to those as well, and we'll provide clarity when those are available too. Before I conclude, but I want to make sure I have Lisa talk about the happenings and the things that we want to talk about, and if she's going to do it today in an American accent rather than British so we can fully understand her. By the way, she's really good at it. If you hear her, it's funny. Her daughter Kalia can also switch from American to British, which is quite funny in hearing her. But Lisa, why don't you let us know what are going on with the happenings for the week or the month, or what we should take a look at as well?
Why, I will just do that. That's about as much American accent as I can get.
I like it.
So Happy New Year, everybody. We're doing the exciting things that are going to be happening in the planning for the remainder of January. And following this podcast, with the topic of the planning goals, we are actually closing our office until around 4 o'clock so we can work on our planning for the 2026 year and what we can do better for you guys. So that is what we will be doing after this podcast, and then remainder of today. So, but we will get back to you. We will have breaks, and if there's anything important, please leave messages. So. And then on Monday, the 19th, the markets and the office will be closed in observance of MLK Junior Day. So we will not be here that day. And the 21st is our bi-weekly podcast again, another Zoom meeting that we will have, and registrations you can get on the happenings emails that come out or from the website. And then also on the 21st, after the podcast, we will have our January birthday club. Again, register from the emails that come out to you all, or go to the website. And I believe there was a postcard also mailed out that you can click on and register for that. We love seeing you for our first birthday lunch of the year. That will be fun. And then on the 28th of January, again, it's a Wednesday, we have our Health and Wealth with Michelle Norris. And anyone who's watched these in the past, they're very informative. And as we all know, the beginning of the year, you need to do a good health and wealth. Sugar detox is the topic for this one. So that will be great after everything we ate over the holidays. So, and then our Ladies and Gentian is back up and running for 2026. That it will be Thursday, January the 29th. And we are discussing declutter your life. Purging and organizing at any age. This is not just for people who are considering moving, retiring into a home or anything. This is for everybody, and everybody knows, especially after the holidays, how much stuff we have. So all good things happening in January. Lots of things to come as we will discuss the rest of our day here. But that's what we have for all our clients. So thanks a lot, Chris. Sorry, you're on mute. So I don't know whether you was doing an English accent.
No, I was. I was quite doing an accent myself. I just wanted to ask a question, though, quite right, which would be, are they going to help us also organize our desks, our workplaces? Right. Is she going to talk about that and how to declutter that? Right.
Yeah, that might be a longer meeting.
Thank you, though. I appreciate that. Thank you, Lisa. There's a lot of great things coming up, and even a lot more on the agenda as well. So as I close our initial podcast, I just wanted to go through a couple of things about hope and optimism. A couple of things we look at in life as we're setting goals. We all have longer term goals. Some of you say, Chris, I'm older, I don't have any long-term goals. As a matter of fact, one gentleman I'd met with, Bob, said, Chris, I don't even buy green bananas anymore. And I remember him saying that, but what? Oh, come on. But it was kind of funny. And we get to this, but I have a single question. You have long-term goals. What allows you to attain those long-term goals? It's the short-term choices every day. I want to be healthy, but I eat fast food every day because it's convenient and I run out of time. That doesn't help achieve this long-term goal. Like Ryan had said, setting a standard for even doing something minimal to make sure I'm constantly moving toward that long-term whatever that milestone might be. It's a huge one. Another thing we do about technology, and it's kind of a bit of a transition, is we underestimate the long-term effect of technology. We overestimate the short term. So let me give you a couple of different ideas here. So I get the question oftentimes, Chris, what do we have to be hopeful about? And looking at investments or on a go-forward basis, there's quite a few different things. Let me give you some samples. I wrote them down just to give you an idea. But there's a few things I'm going to say. Humanoid robots, if you haven't seen lately, we've brought Atlas to you since I was introduced to Atlas 12 or 13 years ago. That's from a company named Hyundai, but it's from Boston Dynamics. They're not investable companies, but it's a company that owns this robot called Atlas. And yesterday, if you haven't looked at it online, they show the latest demo of Atlas. Very, very cool to see how it works, what it's going to do, where they're going to implement it as well. Look at those as well. We've seen AI, especially now being a huge topic we've all talked about. You use it on some of the large language models. You need to learn how to use it, become a better prompter. We'll talk about that in some future podcasts, but probably have a separate program just on prompting, how to use AI as your thinking partner. We'll talk more about that. But AI automation, robots are massive on a go-forward basis. There's some in Wisconsin and probably in your area if you're outside of Wisconsin, data centers. Everybody's talking about data centers being built. They're everywhere. They're talking about the cooling, heating, where they're putting them in, how people love them, how people don't care for them. There's a ton of going on with that. Another one is energy and climate. We're looking at some massive go-forward basis of new ways to generate energy in a clean, powerful way that we may have really unlocked clean core energy with very little waste. And that's coming up in the next 10 to 15 years. You'll start to see more and more aspects around that as well. Another one is going to be AI language models, biogenetic cures. Listen to this, biogenetic cures of diseases, not just looking at the symptoms of diseases themselves. So longevity and the health demographics, cyber and digital infrastructure, security are massive on a go-forward basis. Reshoring is massive in the US. So things we'd sent overseas are coming back here because our electrical efficiency and the ability for us to use robotics to create things and make things is much cheaper than actually sending them across an ocean for several months and bringing them back. So you're seeing a lot of that beginning to occur here, making all this practical for you. These are all the things, and there's many, many more that our analysts are looking at, that they're looking at on a consistent basis. If you look at them today, there's probably an entrepreneur from a company out there that makes semiconductors, that's made a bunch of money, that's now quitting, leaving, or being downsized, that's creating the next big company, the next big thing. This is where it's fertile. We may have some strong correction, but if you look at the land of opportunity, you still see hope. You still see opportunity. You still see people trying to fix things and make them better. I'd say this is a land of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have really created what it is we're living in today. We've created it as people as well. I think as we've mentioned, this country, what it is, how we operate in it is really our choice. So let's continue to do that in 2026. Let's make this really one of our best years in how we show up. We really are here to help you clarify, calm, ride through what occurs, and make sure that we're still on plan. Make sure that when we're feeling something strong emotionally, we're not making decisions that make a massive difference in your future potential financially or for your family. We want to be here and help you and them have the best 2026 ever. So from our team here at Gentian, we appreciate you. We appreciate your trust in us, and we will respond in service and calmness from everybody you see here, who you've seen today, those who you haven't seen today. We want to thank you for your trust in us. We want to welcome you to 2026. We look forward to seeing, meeting, and talking and listening and hearing from you this year. And with that, I want to say thank you for 2026 from our galactic headquarters here in Mequon, Wisconsin. This is Chris Doty thanking you from our podcast here at Gentian Financial. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.